Hello and welcome to the Business of Authority. I'm Jonathan Stark.
And I'm Rochelle Moulton.
And today we ask the question, is work-life balance a myth?
This is going to be interesting.
Yes.
I think this is one of those things where we both have opinions, probably strong opinions, and we agree in some places and we probably don't agree in others.
Right.
So this will be fun.
Right. Okay, so maybe we start here. What is work-life balance? How would you define that concept as used in the popular parlance?
Well, let me just be right up front and say I hate that expression so much. And it may be that I'm a product of how I, grew up professionally, but what I hear when I hear those words is that you have to have this balance where the scale's exactly in the middle. And like there's half his work and half his life, and they're just perfectly balanced. And that I do think is a myth, by the way. So the way I think of work-life balance is that you have decided what kind of a life you want to create for yourself, and the role of work in that life, and the role of your life outside of work in that life. And I also believe that it changes because a lot of us raise children, and so we're maybe not so available in on the work side when they're really small or when they're teenagers, and then we're hugely available when we're first starting out of school or when the kids are out of the house and we're newly excited. So I know you asked me a simple question, which is what do I think it is?
Yeah.
So it is this balance it's the integration of work and life that is ideal to your situation in this moment. There is no one perfect work-life balance.
Well, I'll definitely agree with that. I also do not like the phrase because work is a subset of life, so it doesn't even make logical sense. So to me, and I know that it's very semantic distinction. If anything, it should be work-home balance. But work is part of your life. I don't understand. It's always going to be a subset. So and the thing that it implies is that the stuff you do at work isn't your life. It's this thing that you suffer through so that you can have a home life. And to me, it's an indication. If someone is like beating the drum for, I need to get my work-life balance in order. It's like, to me, it's just a red flag that you need to make a change. And it's not about, I don't think it's, yes, you can set boundaries at your corporate job and not pick up the phone on weekends or answer email on the weekends. But if you're worried about that, I think you have the wrong job. So the bigger switch might be, well, let's really think big about this and say, if I'm not happy, what is it? 30% of your 40% of your waking hours are spent at work. If you're not happy with that and you need to set boundaries to keep you away from that, it's just a huge red flag to me. Not that everyone can just up and quit and do something different, but it's a big sign that something is out of alignment. Now, if we could, though.
Well, wait. If you're going to change the subject, I want to come back to boundaries.
Okay. I just wanted to focus this on our audience, not the general population. Like, we don't have employees listening. So to me, that's a totally different conversation.
Gotcha. Well, the boundary thing, though, is that if you think it's the job and it's really about how you set your boundaries, you're going to bring that with you when you start your company, when you start your business. So, I still think that it really behooves us. And I see this a lot with women in particular, where maybe we're not as good at setting boundaries. And so sometimes, especially if you're going to leave anyway, it's a great place to practice boundaries. Like, okay, I'm not going to check my email after 8:00 at night, or I'm not going to check it during family dinner or when my kid is playing a sport. But I guess what I'm saying is I disagree with if this thing is dinging in your head, it means you're in the wrong job. Sometimes it means you need to do a better job with boundaries. So, okay.
Yeah.
Enough sidebar.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think it's a half measure. But you make a good point. If you can't set boundaries, then you're going to continue to have, your clients are going to probably trample all over them too. So, if you quit a corporate job and went solo and you're terrible at saying no to things, then yeah, that's something you need to work on. So, okay, there's something you mentioned in there that I want to address, which is the answering email at the dinner table with your kids or during their soccer game. I see that as a problem if you're doing that. But to me, the problem isn't around work-life balance. It's around like the illusion of multitasking. When I hear work-life balance, I hear what you said. When somebody says work-life balance, it's like I punch out of my job that I don't like, don't enjoy, and I will not engage in that after I'm punched out. So, outside of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, I'm not doing my job, whatever that means. And I'm like, okay, it just seems like to me, that seems like such a draconian block. Not that it wouldn't work. Like, I see that it would work. I can imagine that it works for some people. But to me, it's like, if you loved your job and it energized you, you wouldn't want to wait that long. You wouldn't want that much time to go by without being able to engage in this thing that energizes you. So I see it as much more fluid. To me, it's like, I'm only going to do one thing. Like when we go out to dinner, we're out to dinner. Mm-hmm. When I come home and everyone goes to bed, if I want to check email, I'm going to check email. It's like, if that's what I feel like doing, like, I just don't see the arbitrary, as long as you're not multitasking and trying to do both things at once, I don't see the point of making an arbitrary distinction about what the activity is.
I think it's personal. I think it just depends. I think we all make different choices for different reasons. Like sometimes we have to retrain ourselves to do certain things. This is not directly related, but I just want to address this too. I remember this when I was going to school, and I haven't really encountered it much until I talked to a family member about this recently. And this is someone who's graduating from a professional program and is making choices based on how much time they think they'll have available to start a family. And it was really interesting.
Wait, say that again.
Yeah. Okay. So they're making choices, like they're coming out of a professional educational program, and they're making work choices based on this future. I want to have a family, so I need to make sure that I have enough time to do that. And what was really interesting is I was kind of coaching them through this decision process. And when I found what they really loved to do, like where their excitement was, and maybe, some intimations of their genius zone, was something that they didn't think was compatible with raising a child. Okay. And I said, okay, how about you don't have the child yet? How about you go where your interest is, and then you figure out how to make it work later when you have real life experience versus, handcuffing yourself right out of the block. So anyway, I want to make that point because I think people, especially a lot of women, have felt pressured to do that. Like, I need to take a job where I can have a sabbatical for 3 months, or I need to take a job where I can have the summers off, even though I can't do the work that I love. Anyway, there's a lot of trade-offs that are made in the name of work-life balance that just make me crazy.
So I'm not 100% sure I'm following you on this one, though. So what are the trade-offs?
Think about a young woman who's coming out of college or let's say a master's degree. So they're like in their mid-20s, and they have a professional love that they've just dedicated a whole bunch of time to. And then they're thinking, okay, I want to have children. I don't want to wait too long. So I'm going to choose the option that pays me the least, because it offers me more flexibility, and I'm cutting myself off from the professional development that I could be doing right now at this point in my career.
This is an entrepreneur, or this is a person who's going to be like a lawyer or something?
It's someone who it's not a lawyer, but it's the same idea. You could go work for a law firm, or you could start your own practice. Mm-hmm. Or you could go inside of a big corporation and try to manage your time that way. I mean, whatever the area of expertise, you're typically going to have multiple options.
Right.
My advice to her was, go where your genius is calling you, where you get the most excited. You can always make it work later. but don't stymie yourself in this idea of work-life balance before the situation is even in front of you.
Do you with this particular person, did you agree about their assessment that there is no way to have a kid and a career?
So she was saying she could do both, but she'd have to dial back on her aspirations on the career side.
Okay. I guess I'm probably just stuck because I don't know the details. But certainly, obviously, people make that choice, right? Everyone's got limited resources. It's like part of the deal as a human. You've got so much time, money, energy, and so forth to deploy, and you need to make strategic decisions about how you're going to deploy the resources. So if you want to eat your cake and have it too, that doesn't work.
Right. You make those choices, but you make those choices when you're presented with the options versus 10 years before.
Okay. Right. Now I'm following you because it was making a decision based on like a hazy, distant future.
Yes. Another example would be if your health isn't great and you know that you just can't handle a certain amount of physical activity, for example. So maybe you don't take a job where you have to travel every week because it's just too much for you. Totally get that. Right. Make the right decision for you, but make it for who you are now and what excites you and where you want to go next. Because I guarantee, if nothing else, where you want to go next will change at some point.
Right. Yeah. That's a very strong signal. Like that thing that you're excited to do is a very strong signal. And I've certainly encountered people who have ignored that signal for so long that they can't remember what they like 10 or 20 years later. And it almost turns into a depression. Like they're trapped in this, like, here I come saying, help people like get what they want for free at scale. And they're like, well, I don't know who I like or what I like, or like they're almost blind to the sensation because it's been ignored for so long.
Yeah. Or you're in an environment where nobody ever asks you, right?
Yeah.
You're being a good corporate soldier.
Right. I don't remember where I saw this, but it was someone was saying like a 5-year-old isn't doing a cost benefit analysis on how they should spend their time at recess. They're just going to like run around and have fun, and then they're going to go to the next fun thing and the next fun thing and the next fun thing. And as you get older and have more responsibilities, it gets more complicated than that. But it feels like it gets that ability to detect fun, or fulfillment, or just that pull of your genius zone, or whatever that sort of gut desire level stuff that's not necessarily rational. It seems like that can get so lost that you only know how to kind of move forward based on numbers on a spreadsheet or that sort of thing. And it doesn't seem to work. Like if you don't know what you just end up like unfulfilled and not happy. Is this related, or am I off topic here?
No, I hear you. And I think the other thing is that, we change what we want over time. And in the case of kids grow up. And our roles change. And so, but you're the constant. And so, yeah, who you are as the parent to an infant, a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 25-year-old are very different. And so, yeah, it's all about how you figure out the life you want to live and what role all the pieces play in it. And they don't have to have firm boundaries unless you're a firm boundary kind of person.
Right. I feel like I don't want to just be like, you figure it out, like what's a framework for thinking about this that people could maybe drill into the popular concept of work-life balance in a useful way. So if you're concerned, like I'm not concerned with work-life balance. It's not a thing that I think about after years of carefully constructing my air quotes work in a way that suits me. Just constantly following the what do I feel like doing today, given the goals I've set, but I don't think about. I set a goal, I create systems that I think might reach the goal. I create metrics that are going to let me know if I'm on the road or I'm in the ditch toward that goal. And then I create a system, tactics that are fun and frictionless and quick or easy or energize me, whatever they are. And I'll swap through tactics like, this like podcast tour is really a drag right now. I'm going to switch to a different tactic. Same system, same goal, different tactic. And after years of doing that, it's like, like going on vacation is way more stressful than any of my weeks. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's all up in the air. It's all, you're managing 4 schedules in real time and 4 people's emotions in real time and, and all of that versus the relatively, I guess, comfortable
adventure versus routine or habits.
Habits. Right. All my habits get, not all of them, but a lot of my habits get thrown out of the window on, say, a vacation or something like that. Some unusual event enters my calendar, and it could be anything, training for my next black belt, or Thanksgiving week is usually a meteoric event. So stuff like that. And that would fall into the life category, the home category. Everybody says it's like, oh, I almost need a vacation from my vacation. Like you get back and you're like, oh, I'm so drained. It's like, that's definitely me. Like it's fun while we're there and I'm focused on it. We just got back from Disney. It was an absolute blast. We went on like every roller coaster we could find, and it was hilarious and fun. When we got back, I was very happy to be back. I was happy to be there. I was also happy to be back. I guess the point is, I feel like people like us, that's the goal. Maybe large part. Like, would you agree? Like most people that are interested in doing what we're doing, building an expertise business. This is probably just confirmation bias on my part, but I feel like most people are trying to create a business that serves their life, that they enjoy, that energizes them. And then if this popular culture work-life balance starts to creep into their mind, it just means they've got some work to do to get back to the things that energize them and do more of those and fewer things that drain them.
Yeah, I think I agree. I maybe reword a couple things. One is that, at least in my universe, most people don't say work-life balance, which is kind of interesting that we chose that for the title of this episode.
Yeah, I can't remember how it came up.
I don't usually hear those words unless it's like on a podcast, and because we want to give a name to this thing. But yeah, I think that everybody goes through their own version. Not everybody starts an expertise business because they want more flexibility. Sometimes it's I guess that is flexibility. I started to say they just don't want to follow somebody else's beat. They want to be their own drummer. And other times it was sudden because they lost a job and they're trying to figure out what to do next. I just interviewed on the podcast a couple of people who said that, they didn't realize they were starting a business. Like they lost their job and they're like, I'll just do this thing until,
right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I guess I have a business. So those kinds of things happen too. But and the thing is, I guess part of the reason why I never liked that phrase work-life balance is it implies that there is this perfect nirvana point and then you get to it and nothing ever changes. And that's just not life today, right? In fact, I used to say that you recognize work-life balance in your rearview mirror. Like you were in it for a moment and then you're out of it on either side, too much work or too much life.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. And it's really, I hope this doesn't sound disheartening because I actually think of it as energizing and having a lot of potential, that our definition of this changes and it's always changing. So we're always adjusting to working a little more during a big project, working a little less or none because we want to take our family on a great vacation, or if I want to go climb mountains for a weekend and just disconnect, I'm going to do that. Or if I'm going to climb mountains and check email when I set up camp at the end of the day, right? And that's the point, is part of the reason why many of us do this is to have that flexibility and still do something that is deeply meaningful to us.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. I think about like literal balance a lot, like literally balancing on one foot. And to me, it never really occurred to me, although I do think you're right that people mean it this way, that there's a perfect work-life balance. But for me, balance is always a constant corrections. It's constant. Like if you're doing a roundhouse kick and you're practicing it and you're up on one foot and you're going to do 20 in a row, you're not like, your bottom leg is you're not like a statue. It's this subtle There's subtle movements and there's subtle corrections, constant subtle corrections to keep yourself in balance. I think the metaphor is instructive too, because there's an ideal if you're trying to balance on one foot. There's an ideal. Like if you fall over, you've failed. That's away from the ideal. You want to be making the smallest possible corrections and staying upright. There's a goal. It's a clear goal. And with your air quotes work-life balance, if you don't have a clear, you need to have some kind of measurement. You need to be able to measure how balanced you are, like how stand-up straighty you are. And for folks who are operating, I'll just use myself as an example. I can feel myself getting out of balance when I don't feel like doing things that used to be fun. And so I need to have a correction. So and I think I might be very, very highly attuned to that feeling, where at the beginning we were talking about people who don't sense that at all. It's like, my feelings don't matter. Let's look back at the spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. I think I am highly attuned to how I feel about any given activity I do in the day. I don't know how compared to other people, but I am extraordinarily attuned to it. It is like glaringly obvious to me if I feel like doing one of these things on my to-do list, if there's one I keep on skipping. And it's very easy to see and feel. And so then it immediately raises this flag in my head. And it's like, maybe I should just be honest with myself. I'm not going to do this. I obviously do not want to do this thing. I'm not excited to go do this thing. Is it critical? Is there some other way I could accomplish the same goal? Could I swap something else in there that might be more fun, if only because it's novel and new, and I could find out whether or not I like that thing? So to me, it's a very similar thing. So in a sense, I'm balancing. To me, the home work or the work life, it's meaningless. It's like, it's a thing I need to do, or I know because my system says this is what needs to happen today. Whether it's setting up the Christmas decorations in the front yard or getting ready for a webinar on Thursday. And I can instantly feel which one I'm like more excited about. Maybe a lot more excited.
Which one is it?
The webinar by a mile.
I knew that.
In case that wasn't obvious. I mean, the Christmas decorations are fun, but the webinar is going to be super fun. So I can feel it pulling me. And if there was something, I don't know, I could probably think of something on my to-do list that I am really not looking forward to. Actually, I can't think of one, but there probably is one. And if it's a one-off, I'll probably just do it. But if it's a recurring thing, I'll really think about it. My point being, it doesn't matter to me if it's a work thing or if it's a life thing or whatever you want to call it, a home thing. It's about, do I feel like doing this, regardless of what it is? And if I don't, then maybe it's on the chopping block. Maybe it's something to look at.
Because you're an integrator. That's how I think of the way you describe your style. You're an integrator. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Everything just flows through. Yeah. And you decide in that moment, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do it? And you might make priority decisions at different times. Like, you might prioritize work sometimes. You might prioritize a family thing sometimes. Maybe because it's fun. Maybe because it's essential. Somebody's sick and, you got to be the guy, right, to step up. So, that happens. So that's what I think of as integrating what you're doing. And I like that. That works for me, but I still have some additional boundaries around that. But there are also people who do put more strict boundaries on the flow between personal and work. And I'm not here to say that's a good or bad idea. I think it's whatever works for you. I don't see it as much with our soloist expertise people. Mm-hmm. There tends to be a lot more flow between the two because you're the one that's not going to an office. You're probably the one that's doing some of those other things in the middle of the workday, right? Like, I don't know, running to the store to pick up milk or picking up the kids or...
Who, me specifically?
Anybody. Yeah, not just you. It's the person who has the expertise business is often, if they're in a partnership with a person who is working a conventional schedule, you're probably the one that's doing more of those kinds of things. I mean, I would expect, maybe not, but Yeah, so I don't see very many. I saw a lot more in my consulting, big firm consulting life, but I don't see very many people that have really firm, this is work and this is business and never the twain shall meet. I don't see that very often.
With our group.
Yeah, with our group.
Yeah. So is this a waste of time?
No, I'm wondering if we should just hit delete now. But no, but I think I do think it's still a question because it comes down to boundaries, I think. It becomes easy if you don't have a set schedule to allow your time to get hijacked by things that you don't value in the name of work or in the name of your life. And so an example of that would be you have extra time. So you go, oh, I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to start this podcast. And it eats up a ton of your time. Let's just assume you're just, it's not getting the result that you want. Or you're like, okay, I guess since, I'm around more, I'll take the kids to all of their doctors and dentist appointments. Like nobody wants to do that. Nobody. That is not on anybody's joy list, guaranteed. So it can become easy if you don't have boundaries or strict boundaries. Everybody has some, to wind up using this extra time that you've created to do something else that you're not valuing. Maybe it has value, like, your kids do need to go to the doctor and the dentist, but it doesn't feel like genius zone time for sure. Right. And maybe not even in your competency zone. Right. If you're not good with, setting appointments and schlepping people here and there.
Yeah, I'm feeling seen right now because that's the danger with me is that my boundaries have to be around the personal stuff because there's this, I'm a homeowner. So like there's an endless to-do list. Our house is over 100 years old. Like there's not a right angle in the thing. There's not a wall that couldn't be sanded, molding that couldn't be sanded and repainted. I mean, there's just no end. So at a certain point, you're right. It's like I have way more boundaries. I have to have way more boundaries on that side if solo income, right, or sole breadwinner, or whatever it's called. Yeah, I could be sanding molding for a month and not be done. It's like, but I do have to do some stuff to keep the money machine turning, right? So
right.
Right. And the other thing about that, and I just, we just did a big DIY bathroom renovation. Talk about out of my genius zone. Like I can kind of do construction, and it was a family project. It's going to be a memory for forever. Remember the summer mom and dad destroyed the bathroom, and I mean it had lots of benefits and whatever, but it was very draining when it got to like risky stuff that I felt like I only had one shot at, or it was just like, this needs to be done. Like I'm gonna get one shot at, I don't know, seating the tub, and if I get it wrong, it's gonna be wrong for the rest of my life. Like it's not gonna
you're gonna keep looking at it.
I'm gonna keep looking at it for the rest of my life. So that, to me, that's stressful. That is a source of stress for me. Really stressful. There's like a $3,000 tub, or what, I don't even know it. Erica paid for it, but it was like, I'm like, okay, this whole project is basically my satisfaction at the end of this project is hinging on me putting this thing down level and correct and cementing it the way it's supposed to be. And like, if it's wrong, we might as well start over, which we're not going to do. So stuff like that is I don't encounter that kind of stress at work ever, not even close. Yeah. So now you finally roped me in, because the life stuff is way more stressful to me because I'm not as good at it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's a really good point. It just struck me. I spent the last week, well, it's been longer than a week. We need a new chandelier for over the dining room table. And I'm a really visual person, but like, I'm not a designer. Like I can't look at something and go, oh yes, that's perfect. It's exactly the right dimensions. Right. And I'm looking at it online. So what I did is I took a bunch of newspaper, and I taped it together into the dimensions of this thing. and I put a big string around it, and Harvey's a lot taller than me, so I had him hang it off there's like a fan fixture there. I had him hang it off there, and we lived with it for a week to see. I know, exactly. But that was stressful because it's a thing, it's a very expensive thing that we would buy. It takes like 4 months to fabricate. And then if you want to return it, there's a big restocking fee. And plus we'd have to start all over. So, I've wasted like 6 months in thinking about it. And I didn't want to order it till I was sure. That was stressful. I mean, it was kind of fun too. But the math part of it, like then the dimensional, like all that stuff, I kept putting it off because it just didn't feel like it was going to be like fun, and I was going to have to think too much about like dimensions. Like I don't like to do that. So yeah, I mean, it just, but some people could have this in their work life, like where you're trying something new. Like if you've been like doing a thing, like serving clients that way, and you're going to shift to coaching them on a thing or having an advisory on the thing, those are the things, especially at first, that can feel really hard because everything is new. And even if you're excited about it, it's still stressful.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I think as you were talking, I was kind of thinking like, why do we get so stressed out about that stuff? And one of the factors, the contributing factors for me, is the physical space versus digital space. Because for me, I feel so much more free in the digital space. Everything feels so much less risky. And in the physical world, physical space, it just feels way more, there's no undo. Or like undo is a very expensive thing, like you said, with the, sending the thing back. It's literally expensive if you want to undo that decision. But in the digital realm, it feels like it's a lot less expensive to undo stuff. Yeah, I think I feel on balance that generally speaking, that is true for me, and why I get more stressful with like woodworking or whatever, assembling the greenhouse.
But for some people, it's the exact opposite.
Right.
It's everything digital feels scary because you've never done it before, or you've never allowed your voice to be heard a certain way. I mean, I just realized I was getting a little nervous in the first third of this podcast because I did this rant. I never talk about work-life balance this way in public. I mean, I've said the elements of my rant privately probably a gazillion times, but yeah, it felt a little scary. Like, okay, haters, come on.
Out on a limb.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that what scares us varies from person to person.
That's interesting, because normally I say follow the fear, but some of the things we're listing here, it's not that. So that's an interesting distinction. It's like the thing that scares you, probably the thing you should, probably the thing that is the way, the obstacle is the way, like the thing, eat the frog first or whatever. And all of that stuff, I generally subscribe to that. It's like the thing, but there's a category that I never noticed before. There's like a categorical assumption there, which is that it's probably something in your genius zone. The goal on the other side is something in your genius zone. It's like a leap up to the next level or something.
Yes.
Versus
the upward spiral.
Yeah, the upward spiral, right. Versus, is it just something that you should do a different way or eliminate from your life?
That's where I go to that genius zone system, where you have your zone of incompetence, competence, excellence, and genius.
Okay,
right. And I think you let that guide you, because a lot of us, we do things that are in the excellent zone because we like doing them. We enjoy them. We just haven't discovered the genius yet.
Right. Yeah, because after we finished the bathroom, I seriously considered selling all the tools we bought.
You didn't tell me that.
I don't think I've told anyone that. It was like, I've set myself up for more of this incompetence by having these tools.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, do I want to become competent? Do I want to get to a genius zone here? I definitely don't want to get to a genius zone with woodworking or construction. Not interested. It's just not for me. Mm-hmm. Do I want to get to a place of competence? Well, what's the point? What would be the point of getting to a level of competence? Because I'm somewhere in between incompetent and competent. I'm like halfway to competent. and depending on the nature of the work. But anything that's going to be like in the house, like attached to that, like I can make stuff for the garden easily enough. But if it's going to be part of the house, if I don't feel like I did at least a competent job, I might as well have hired someone, because it's just going to bother me. So, so this is the kind of thing that goes through my mind. It's like,
yeah, it's
not fear that it wouldn't be a fear response to like selling all my tools and saying, look, I'm just not doing this anymore. That was fun.
I don't hear any fear.
No, it's not fear. No. It's like, that's not a path I want to continue down. So the question becomes, have I gone far enough down the path to say, okay, that was a fun project and I'm all set. The voice so far that's won out is like, well, we're not selling this house. It's just going to continue to get older. And I do like the self-sufficiency of being able to make minor, easy repairs. So perhaps the lesson, maybe I'm just talking to myself at this point, is just like no more big projects, hire people to do that, where it's just too risky in terms of, it's the bet, it's placing the bet. It's like, I would never place another bet like we did on the bathroom.
Yeah. So what that is, a way to look at this to make the decision is to think about the upward spiral. And we're talking about your whole life, not just like a piece of it. Right. And so the question becomes, does doing this put you on an upward spiral? Like, is that the way that you want to spend your time going forward? This is not about what you did in the past, right? Because that's already done. It's, do you want to do that going forward? And you just answered yourself, no. Now that doesn't mean you have to sell the tools. You paid for the tools with what you saved on the other job, but you could look at them very differently and say, those are the tools when I need them, versus now that I have them, I have to find a way that I'm going to use them more.
Right. They call you, like your tools call you, and I don't just mean the physical, miter saw. I mean like even digital tools and systems. They're like sitting there. There's like they're leveraged. Mm-hmm. There's this superpower. In a sense, you've created through investment or practice or whatever, you've created this ability to multiply your input force to create a bigger output force. So your capabilities are higher, and it feels like they're calling you. Like, yes. Oh, it'd be so easy to just do this thing. It'd be so easy to do this thing. But now I'm thinking opportunity cost, right? Like, how would you rather spend your time? Would you rather watch golf or, all weekend, or spend the whole weekend in the garage? I mean, neither.
Yeah, I was going to say, none of those is calling to me. Thank you very much. I love that, because you just put into consciousness what I was feeling about my real estate business. Because when we sold the property, I had created all these systems because I was thinking, well, I'm going to do more. And so I have all these systems, and some of the obvious signs of that system was I had an email address for that business, and I shut it down. Like I had to. And I wasn't getting a lot of emails to that address, but it reminded me every day when I opened my email that it was still there. And it was like kind of niggling at my self-consciousness. And I'm like, no, I need to close this. And that, for me, that was the zone of excellence. I think I did a really, really good job. I'm really proud of what I did. Was it Genius Zone? There was a little tiny, less than 10% piece of it that was Genius Zone. The rest of it was either competence, incompetence, or excellence. And yeah, they call to you. So there's an argument to be made there to just shut those puppies down.
I know. It's a strong one. It's the same argument I have also failed to to follow through on. I have a lot of musical instruments taking up space in the house that I do not use. Not twice a year, maybe once a year. And I always pick up the same cheap acoustic guitar when I do. Why do I have $10,000 worth of gear? I literally dust them, collecting dust. I just put a drum set in storage so that we had room for the Thanksgiving. We rearranged the house for Thanksgiving so we can fit like 20, 30 people. And just like, oh, the drum set's in the way. Let me dust that thing off and take it to the storage space.
So you're paying for storage on something that you don't use.
Right. But it's a long story, but I haven't pulled the trigger. Like it's definitely, they're artifacts of a previous life. which is not my style.
Well, and it's funny you use that word because the artifact is exactly what I was thinking about. So maybe having your beautiful guitar full of memories mounted on the wall is exactly the thing that you need to remind you of that time in your life. But that's the only artifact you need. The drums can go. The cheap acoustic one can go. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as ideas. But I think, I think this is common for a lot of us where we have these things from a particular time in our life. And the older we get, the more stuff we have like that. And then you just decide. I mean, I threw away. There was a period in my 30s where I was giving all these parties. And I would do these really interesting invitations. And I would do a menu. So I had saved all the invitations and I'd saved the menu, and I did the menu again on the same little thing, only so I wouldn't repeat myself. If I had the same people, I wanted it to be more interesting. And I have this file folder full of these things. And I really had fun looking at them. And I'm like, oh, I would so not do this now. I tossed them. Like, I just don't need to, I'm not going to pull it out and look at them. I don't want to mount them someplace. Like, I don't need these anymore. Yeah. But it was, I think we all have that. And I just realized how off topic we have gotten.
Yeah. I mean, now we're into Marie Kondo territory.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably there'll be
we have fed each other in going off the rails today.
Yeah. Well,
usually one of us pulls the other one back.
Well, the dear listener can get a glimpse into what it's like before and after we hit record. It sounds like this. But yeah. So if we do pull it back, what does it all boil down to? It's how it makes you feel. It's like having that feelings compass and listening to it and then making decisions based on it. I think that's probably bringing it all the way back. That's where the work-life balance thing comes from. And to just reiterate the point, the work-life balance people, I think, are, by definition, it's implied that work doesn't make them feel good. I don't usually interpret people saying I need to improve my work-life balance or you need a better work-life balance. I don't interpret that to mean that they love work and home and just don't have enough hours in the day to do everything. It feels a lot more like they don't like the work or mostly don't like it and want to do less of it, but it's exceeding its boundaries and encroaching on the stuff they actually like doing, which is home stuff or entertainment or just regular hobbies, life, church, whatever it is. The everything else outside of work stuff. And if you are insensitive or if you numb that detector of being like aware of how a particular activity or whatever is, if you become numb to that or blind to it, it feels kind of like a dangerous place to be. It's like not knowing when you're hungry. Like if you don't know when you're hungry or if you think you're always hungry, that's a problem.
Well, or you're in a rut. I mean, that's kind of the next step of that, which is you're so used to doing things a certain way or being the person who does all of the X job in the home or at work that you just don't think there's another way. It's not even that you're numb to the feelings. It's that you're just like, well, this is how it is. I guess that is numb. But
if you do it long enough, you'll lose the ability to detect it, and you'll have to regain that ability, which is difficult because it becomes so complicated. Like your responsibilities become one, like for someone who, whether it's work or home, once your responsibilities start to really take over and you just white knuckling it through most of your day, every day, and you just working for the weekend. If somebody says, thank God it's Friday to me, I'm like, you need to make a change.
Yeah. Those are not people you want to hang around with.
Right.
Generally speaking.
Right. So, well, we've been all over the road here. I don't know if we've made a point or not, but maybe people will just enjoy the glimpse behind the scenes of our of our thought process when we're actually talking about something that we haven't talked about this really.
We haven't. I think that's why it was so much fun to kind of do that. And this is the last episode that we're going to publish this year, 2023. The next one will be on, I believe, the 1st of January or the 2nd. I think it's the 1st is the Monday. So we'll have something very crisp and clean for the new year. But this was it was so delicious. And thank you for indulging us.
Yeah, I had fun.
Yeah.
So,
So
we'll
did
have
I.
we'll have 2 weeks off to respond to your hate mail, which does energize me, by the way.
I won't say it energizes me, but it's always interesting.
No, I'm sure no one's going to send us hate mail, but we probably missed 1,000 things because this isn't a topic that we generally talk about. Really, I don't even talk about it that much in private. So we're just kind of ranting around the edges. All right, folks. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark.
And I'm Rochelle Moulton.
We hope you have a happy new year. See you in 2024. Bye.
Bye-bye.